The light from my bedroom window made strange shadows on the ceiling. I watched them move while my phone sat on the nightstand, completely silent and dark. Something felt wrong in the air, like when you know a storm is coming but the sky hasn't changed yet. My eyes were heavy, wanting sleep, but my mind kept turning over and over. Then my phone screen suddenly glowed bright white in the darkness. The buzz made my heart jump. I reached over, fingers touching the cold glass. One new message from the girl I call my daughter. The words appeared on the screen like black ink spreading through water. Tonia, I don't want you at my wedding tomorrow. You didn't give birth to me. My real dad is coming instead. Goodbye. My chest felt tight, but not from crying. It was something else, something colder and harder. I read it again, slower this time, making sure each word was real. She wrote my name. Not Mom, not Mama. Just Tonia, like I was a stranger she once knew. I sat completely still, the phone glowing in my hands like a small fire. The clock on my wall ticked loudly in the quiet room. 2:13 in the morning. Most people were sleeping, dreaming about happy things. But here in my dark bedroom, a girl I raised for almost her whole life just told me I wasn't good enough to watch her get married. The man she wanted instead, her real father. He left when she was just a little girl. He walked away and never looked back. I was the one who stayed. I was the one who wiped her tears and cooked her meals, and held her hand through scary doctor visits. But tonight, none of that mattered to her. I placed the phone face down on my blanket. The room felt bigger somehow, emptier. My breathing came slow and steady. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't sobbing into my pillow. Something inside me had shifted, like a door closing that would never open the same way again. A strange calm settled over my shoulders. I had given her everything. Every penny I saved, every weekend I worked extra hours, every dream I put aside, so she could have hers. And she thanked me by erasing me from the biggest day of her life. A small sound came from my throat, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. Just air escaping, carrying away the last bit of hope I'd been holding on to. I picked up my phone again, but not to answer her. There was someone else who needed to hear from me right away. Someone who could stop this wedding before the sun came up. My finger scrolled through names until I found the right one. Delilah Morrison, the woman who planned every single detail of tomorrow's celebration. I pressed call and listened to it ring once, twice, 3 times. A sleepy voice answered, rough with interrupted dreams. Hello. Delilah, I said, keeping my voice level and clear. This is Tonia Hayes. I need you to shut down the wedding. Cancel everything. Now, tonight before morning comes. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing change, waking up fast, understanding spreading through the silence. Cancel. Miss Tonia. The wedding is in less than 12 hours. Everything is ready. The flowers are arranged. The cake is decorated. Yes, I interrupted gently. And as of this moment I am taking back every dollar, every permission, every piece of my support. Call everyone. Tell them it's over. Her breath caught. She knew what this meant. Women understand each other in these moments, especially when one woman has finally reached her limit. I'll start making calls right away, she said quietly. No one will know. It was you who stopped it. Yes. She'll figure it out on her own, Delilah replied. I'll keep your name out of it until she comes looking for answers. The call ended with a soft click. I set the phone down and lay back against my pillows, staring at those ceiling shadows again. They didn't look scary anymore. They just looked like shadows, nothing more. If you're watching this right now, tell me what time it is where you are in the comments below. Some nights change everything, whether you're ready or not. When the sun finally started painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors, I was already awake. I hadn't really slept, but I wasn't tired. My body felt light, like I'd put down something heavy I'd been carrying for years. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, dancing slightly with each vibration. I looked at it but didn't rush to answer. The screen showed Delilah's name. Picked it up slowly. Yes. Everything you asked for is done, she said. Her voice sounded different now, more awake, more certain. I've contacted every person on the vendor list. Flowers cancelled. Music cancelled. Food cancelled. Photography cancelled. The venue is locked down tight. No one gets inside without your direct permission, and that permission doesn't exist anymore. Something in my chest loosened just a little. What about the money? I asked. Most of it is coming back to you, she explained. The deposits that said no refunds, those are gone. But the big payments, the ones that matter, they're already processing back to your bank account. You should see them start appearing by this afternoon. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. The money wasn't really the point. It never had been. But getting it back meant I was taking control of my own story again, not letting someone else write the ending. Thank you, Delilah. Do you want me to send any messages? She asked carefully. Do you want me to explain anything to anyone? No, I said firmly. Let the day unfold exactly as it is. Her wake up thinking everything is perfect and discover the truth on her own. Understood, Delilah whispered. Then the line went quiet. I stood up and walked to my bedroom window, pulling back the curtain to let morning light flood inside. My street looked peaceful. Birds sang in the trees. A neighbor walked their dog past my house, waving at nothing in particular. Everything looked normal, but across town in a fancy hotel room, my stepdaughter was about to wake up to a very different kind of day. Thought about all the money I'd spent. $42,000. That's more money than some people make in a whole year. I'd pulled it from my savings account bit by bit, month after month, watching the numbers go down while her wedding plans grew bigger and bigger. She never asked how much I was spending. She just smiled and picked out expensive things like it was all free. Now, some of that money was swimming back toward me through computer systems and bank transfers, finding its way home. Walked into my kitchen and made myself a cup of tea, the same kind I always made on Saturday mornings. Steam rose from the cup, twisting in the sunlight coming through the window. I sat at my small kitchen table and sipped it slowly, letting the warmth spread through me. There was nothing to rush toward, no makeup artist to meet, no dress to zip up, no photos to smile for. I was simply a woman drinking tea in her own quiet house while the world turned without needing me to perform. My phone started buzzing again, this time with a different name flashing on the screen. Patricia Young, the groom's mother. I stared at the name, watching it pulse with each ring. My thumb hovered over the answer button, but I didn't press it. Not yet. There was something important about letting other people sit in their confusion for a while, letting them wonder what happened instead of rushing to explain. The ringing stopped. Few seconds later it started again. Patricia calling back, more insistent this time. I let it ring until it gave up. Then I watched as a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it. Whatever panic was spreading across town, whatever questions people were asking, those were problems they created by believing lies about me. 10 years ago, when everything fell apart, I didn't know I'd end up raising someone else's child alone. But life doesn't always ask permission before it changes your path. My husband back then, his name was Richard. He wasn't a bad man when I married him. At least I didn't think so. He worked hard, came home on time, kissed his daughter goodnight. We seemed like a regular family. His daughter from his first marriage, little Amber. She was 8 years old when I became her stepmother. Tiny braids in her hair, gap-toothed smile, always asking questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Where do birds sleep? Can I have ice cream for breakfast? I learned to braid hair by watching videos on my phone. I learned to pack school lunches that other kids wouldn't make fun of. I learned to be patient during homework time when math problems made her cry. Slowly she started calling me Mama Tonya, then just Mama. Her real mother had left when she was a baby, moved to another state, sent birthday cards maybe twice a year with $20 inside. I became her mother in all the ways that mattered, the daily ways, the small ways, the ways that don't get written in official documents. Then one spring evening, everything shattered like dropping a glass on a tile floor. I came home early from work, feeling sick with a headache that wouldn't stop pounding behind my eyes. The house was supposed to be empty. Richard had said he was taking Amber to her soccer game. But when I opened the front door, I heard laughter coming from upstairs. Not child laughter. Adult laughter, low and private. My feet carried me up the stairs even though my heart was screaming at me to turn around. I pushed open the bedroom door and saw them. Richard and a woman I'd never seen before, sitting too close on the edge of our bed, her hand on his knee. His smile too comfortable, too familiar. They jumped apart like children caught stealing cookies. The woman grabbed her purse and rushed past me, mumbling something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. Richard stood up, straightening his shirt, mouth opening to form words I didn't want to hear. "I'm sorry," he started. "It's not what you think. We were just talking." But I could smell perfume that wasn't mine. I could see guilt written all over his face in letters too big to hide. "Where's Amber?" Yes. That was my first question, not about the woman, not about his betrayal, but about the little girl who called me Mama. "She's at my mother's house," he said quietly. I lied about the soccer game. Of course he did. He'd planned this, arranged for his daughter to be elsewhere so he could bring another woman into our home, into our bedroom. I told him to leave. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right then, that night. He tried to argue, said we should talk about it like adults, said I was overreacting. I wasn't overreacting. I was surviving. He packed a bag and left. The next morning, I went to pick up Amber from her grandmother's house. She ran to me with her arms wide open, backpack bouncing against her small shoulders. "Did you and Daddy have fun last night?" she asked, innocent and trusting. My heart cracked a little more. The days that followed taught me what real exhaustion feels like. Richard's mother called me, angry and accusing, saying I drove her son away with my controlling behavior. His friends stopped inviting me to gatherings. People who I thought cared about me suddenly couldn't look me in the eye. But Amber stayed with me. The court said she should, since her father had effectively abandoned her when he moved in with that other woman across town. I became her legal guardian. One income instead of two. One parent instead of a team. Worked my regular job during the day and picked up night shifts at a store stocking shelves after Amber went to bed. My neighbor, sweet Mrs. Chen, would sit in my house those nights, knitting and watching television, making sure Amber wasn't alone. I'd come home at midnight or 1 in the morning, feet aching, back sore, and find Amber asleep in her bed, homework done and placed neatly on the kitchen table. Mrs. Chen would smile and wave away my thanks, saying, "We help each other. That's what neighbors do." Years passed like that. Amber grew taller, smarter, more beautiful. She made the honor roll. She joined the school choir. She brought home certificates and ribbons that I taped to the refrigerator until there was barely any white space left. When she was 15, Richard started calling again. At first, just once a month, awkward conversations about nothing important. Then more often, weekly calls that turned into video chats. He'd moved back to town, he said. He wanted to reconnect with his daughter. I didn't stop him. How could I? He was her father, even if he'd been absent for years. Even if he'd hurt me and abandoned her. Children deserve chances to know their parents, I thought. I was trying to do the right thing. But something shifted in Amber after those calls started. She became distant, spending more time in her room with the door closed. She stopped telling me about her day. When I asked questions, her answers got shorter. Fine. But whatever. I told myself it was just teenage behavior, normal growing pains. But deep down, I felt her pulling away from me like a boat drifting from shore. One afternoon, I heard her on the phone in her room, voice muffled through the door. She was talking to someone, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. "I'm going to see Dad this weekend," she said. "He's so different now. He's really trying." He explained everything. It wasn't really his fault. Those words landed on me like stones. Explained everything. It wasn't really his fault. What had he told her? What story had he created to make himself look better? I knocked softly on her door. She ended the call quickly and looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed guarded. "Did you need something?" she asked. "Just wanted to see if you're okay," I said. "I'm fine," she replied, turning back to her phone. The conversation was over. Over the next year, Richard's presence in her life grew larger while mine seemed to shrink. He took her shopping and came back with bags full of clothes I couldn't afford. He took her to fancy restaurants while I heated up leftovers at home. He became fun dad, weekend dad, the one who didn't enforce bedtimes or check homework or ask about chores. I remained the one who said no, the one who worried about grades and curfews and responsibilities. It wasn't fair, but life rarely is. When Amber turned 21, she moved out into her own apartment. Richard helped her move, rented a truck, carried boxes, played the hero. I showed up with cleaning, supplies and groceries, practical things she'd need. She thanked me, but her hug felt different, quicker, less warm. Our relationship became phone calls that grew less frequent, text messages that took longer to answer, invitations to dinner that got cancelled at the last minute. Then she met David, a nice young man who worked at a bank and treated her kindly. They dated for 2 years, and when he proposed, she called me crying happy tears. "I'm getting married, Mama Tonia," she shouted through the phone. "Can you believe it?" I was so happy I cried too. For a moment everything felt right again. She asked me to help plan the wedding, said she needed my advice on everything. We spent weekends looking at venues, tasting cakes, choosing flowers. Each decision felt like rebuilding a bridge between us. Then came the question of money. The venue alone cost $15,000. The catering was another $12,000. Photography, music, decorations, dress, it all added up faster than raindrops in a storm. Amber sat across from me at a coffee shop, calculator on the table between us, worry creasing her forehead. "I don't know how we're going to pay for all this," she admitted. "David's family can help some, but not enough." I looked at her, this young woman I'd raised, and made a decision. "I'll cover it," I said. "All of it. Whatever you need." Her eyes went wide. "Are you sure? That's so much money." "I'm sure," I told her. "This is your special day. You deserve to have everything you've dreamed of." She hugged me tight, tighter than she had in years. "Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much." That was 6 months ago. 6 months of watching my bank account drain. 6 months of saying yes to her every request. 6 months of believing I was investing in our relationship. But something changed again about 2 months before the wedding. Amber started mentioning Richard more often. "Dad thinks we should have a live band instead of a DJ," she'd say. "Dad says the flower arrangements should be bigger. Dad wants to make sure everything is perfect. Dad. His opinion suddenly mattered more than anyone's, including mine. I asked her once, gently, if Richard was contributing any money to the wedding. She looked uncomfortable. "He's helping in other ways," she said vaguely. "What ways?" "Press. He's just, being supportive. Giving advice." "That's not the same as paying for things," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I know," she replied, defensive now. "He's still my father. He wants to be involved." I didn't argue. What good would it do? 3 weeks before the wedding, Amber came to my house for what I thought was a planning meeting. Instead, she sat down with her hands folded in her lap and said words that made my blood turn cold. "I've been thinking about the wedding ceremony," she started. "Dad really wants to walk me down the aisle." My heart stopped. "What about me?" "Yes." I'd assumed we'd walk together. Or maybe I'd walk her alone since I'd been the one raising her all these years. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "He's my real father," she said softly. "Just makes sense. Real father." Those words cut deeper than any knife. "So what am I?" I asked, working hard to keep my voice steady. "You're important too," she said quickly. "You'll still be there. You'll have a good seat." Good seat. Like I was a guest. Not the woman who'd sacrificed everything for her. I didn't fight her on it. What was the point? She'd already made her choice. The days leading up to the wedding, I felt myself going numb. I smiled when people congratulated me. I nodded when they talked about how beautiful everything would be. But inside, I was preparing for something I couldn't quite name yet. Then came that text message at 2 in the morning. The final insult. Delivered in cold digital words. You're not invited anymore. You're not my biological mother. Everything I'd done, every sacrifice I'd made, erased with a few taps on a screen. So yes, when I called Delilah and cancelled that wedding, I wasn't being cruel. I was finally valuing myself enough to stop paying for my own erasure. I finished my tea and rinsed the cup in the sink. Outside my window, the morning continued its peaceful routine, unaware of the storm about to break across town. My phone buzzed again with another call I wouldn't answer. Let them wonder. Let them panic. Let them figure out what happens when you bite the hand that literally paid for everything. The clock showed 8:15. Right about now, vendors were probably showing up at the venue, knocking on locked doors, making confused phone calls. Right about now, Amber was probably waking up in her hotel room, stretching and smiling, thinking today was the day all her dreams came true. She had no idea that her dreams were about to turn into something very different. I went back to my bedroom and opened my closet. The dress I'd bought for the wedding hung there, pale blue with delicate lace on the sleeves. I'd spent $200 on it, money I couldn't really afford, because I wanted to look nice for her special day. I touched the fabric gently, then closed the closet door. That dress would never be worn, at least not for Amber's wedding. Maybe someday I'd wear it to something else, something better, something that actually valued my presence. A memory came to me then, sharp and clear. Amber at age 9, crying because she'd fallen off her bike and scraped her knee. I'd cleaned the wound, put a bandage, decorated with cartoon characters on it, kissed her forehead. She'd looked up at me with those big trusting eyes and said, "You always make everything better, Mama Tonya." I'd believed then that our bond was unbreakable. I'd been wrong. People break bonds all the time when something shinier comes along. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Probably a vendor, probably confused, probably angry. I let it ring until it stopped. Then another call came immediately after. Then another. The panic was spreading. Soon Amber would start getting these calls too. Soon she'd realize something was terribly wrong. I sat down in my comfortable chair by the window. The same chair where I'd read bedtime stories to a little girl years ago. The same chair where I'd helped with homework and listened to teenage heartbreak. That chair held so many memories, and I let myself sit with them for a moment, not pushing them away, just acknowledging they existed. People always say blood is thicker than water. They use it to mean family connections are strongest. But they get the saying wrong. The full saying is actually the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the relationships we choose, the promises we make, those are stronger than biological connections. Chose Amber. I chose to love her and raise her. She chose biology over everything else. Now she'd have to live with that choice. My phone finally went quiet around 9 o'clock. Maybe everyone had given up trying to reach me. Maybe they'd figured out I was the reason everything fell apart. Either way, the silence felt like victory, small and private. I made myself breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, ate slowly while reading a book I'd been trying to finish for months. Time felt different that morning, stretchy and strange. Hours that should have been filled with wedding preparations now belonged only to me. Around 10:30 my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Patricia Young standing on my porch, dressed in what was clearly supposed to be her mother of the groom outfit, a fancy purple suit and matching hat. Her face looked stressed and confused. I didn't open the door. She rang the bell again, then knocked firmly. "Tonya," she called through the door. "Tonya, I know you're in there. Please, we need to talk. What's happening with the wedding?" I remained silent and still, barely breathing. She knocked again, more insistent. "The vendors are saying everything is cancelled. The venue is locked. Nobody knows what's going on. Amber is losing her mind. Please just talk to me." Still I said nothing. After a few more minutes of knocking and calling, Patricia gave up. I watched through the peephole as she walked back to her car, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing angrily as she talked to someone. The car pulled away and my porch was empty again. Let them be confused. Let them be angry. None of them had stood up for me when Amber decided I wasn't. Good enough to attend a wedding I paid for. Where was Patricia when her future daughter-in-law was cutting me out? Where was her defense of basic decency? She showed up now only because the wedding she was expecting had vanished. Not because she cared about my feelings. I went back to my chair and my book, turning pages slowly, letting words wash over me without really absorbing them. The act of reading was calming even if I couldn't focus on the story. Outside, cars drove past. People walked. Dogs. Life continued its normal patterns. Nobody looking at my house would guess the drama unfolding because of decisions I'd made in the middle of the night. Around noon, I heard a car pull up fast and hard outside. Then another voice I recognized, Amber's voice, high and desperate. Tonia. The doorbell rang frantically over and over, like someone was pressing it with their whole hand. Tonia. Please. I know you're home. I stood up and moved to where I could see through the window without being seen. There she was, my stepdaughter, still in pajamas with a coat thrown over them, hair messy, face red from crying. She pounded on the door with both fists. Please. What happened? Why is everything cancelled? The desperation in her voice almost broke me. Almost. But then I remembered that text message. You're not my biological mother. I remembered how easily she'd thrown me away. David appeared beside her, trying to calm her down, hands on her shoulders. Baby, maybe she's not home, he said. Quietly. She's home. Amber screamed. Her car is here. Tonia, please answer me. I stood frozen, watching her fall apart on my doorstep, watching her experience just a fraction of the pain she'd caused me. This was the girl I'd tucked into bed every night. The girl whose lunch I'd packed with little notes saying I love you. The girl I'd taught to ride a bike and braid hair and believe in herself. Now she was pounding on my door, begging for help with a wedding she'd banned me from. Irony was almost funny, except nothing about this felt funny at all. David pulled out his phone and dialed. A second later, my phone rang from where I'd left it on the kitchen counter. I didn't move toward it. Let it ring. Call her. Amber demanded. Make her answer. He tried 3 more times. 3 more times my phone rang and I let it. Finally, Amber sank down onto the porch steps, head in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. David sat beside her, arm around her, looking lost and confused. They sat there for almost 20 minutes while I watched from my hidden position. Finally, David helped her stand. Come on, he said gently. We need to figure this out somewhere else. Let's go talk to your dad. Your dad. Even now, after everything, they were going to Richard for help. The man who contributed nothing but opinions. The man who abandoned his daughter when it suited him. That's who they turned to in a crisis, not the woman who'd actually been there. I watched them drive away, and only then did I breathe normally again. My hands were shaking slightly, the only sign that seeing Amber had affected me. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat back down, waiting for whatever would come next. Because something would come next. This wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The afternoon dragged on in strange silence. My phone stopped ringing around 2 o'clock. Either everyone had given up or they were gathering somewhere to figure out what to do. I imagined them in some hotel conference room. David's family and Amber and probably Richard, all talking over each other, trying to understand how a wedding could just disappear overnight. Did Tonia really do this? Someone would ask. Why would she? Another would wonder. Then Amber would have to explain about the text message, about uninviting me, about replacing me with her absent father. I wonder how that conversation went. I wonder if they looked at her differently afterward, seeing her cruelty spelled out in her own words. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I made a sandwich, nothing fancy, just turkey and cheese on bread. I ate it standing by the kitchen window, looking out at my small backyard where I'd pushed Amber on a swing set that used to stand in the corner. That swing set was gone now, taken down years ago when she got too big for it, but I could still see her in my memory, pumping her legs, shouting higher, higher, laughing with pure joy. Those memories didn't disappear just because she chose to forget them. Around 4 o'clock, my phone rang with a number I actually recognized. Richard. Calling me for the first time in probably 5 years. My ex-husband, the man who'd cheated and left, now trying to reach me because his daughter's wedding had imploded. I stared at his name on the screen, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a hollow kind of emptiness. I didn't answer. He called twice more, then gave up. No voicemail, no text, just failed attempts to reach. Someone who'd stopped caring about his problems a long time ago. The sun started setting, painting my walls with orange and pink light. What should have been wedding reception time, speeches and dancing and cake cutting, was instead just me sitting in my quiet house, feeling the weight of my decision settle into something solid and permanent. Done this. I destroyed a wedding. Some people would say I was wrong, that I was petty and vengeful. Maybe they're right. But they didn't spend $42,000 only to be told they weren't good enough to attend. They didn't raise a child from age 8 to adulthood only to be replaced by someone who showed up once in a while with empty promises. They didn't pour their whole heart into someone only to receive cruelty in return. Around 7 o'clock, as the sky faded to dark purple, headlights appeared in front of my house again. But this time it was a car I didn't recognize, an old sedan that had seen better days. The driver's side door opened and Richard stepped out. He'd gotten older since I'd last seen him, grayer hair, thicker around the middle, but still with that same confident walk like the world owed him something. He came up to my door and knocked, normal knocks, not frantic like Amber's had been. "Tonia," he called. "I know you're in there. We need to talk about this situation." Situation. Like this was a problem to be solved with the right words. I moved to the door but didn't open it. I stood on the other side, separated by wood and locks and 10 years of history. "What do you want, Richard?" I asked through the closed door. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, calm and cold. His voice came back, muffled but clear enough. "We need to fix this mess. Amber is devastated. The wedding can still happen if you just reinstate everything. You have that power. Make the calls." "Yes, I do have that power," I agreed. "And I'm choosing not to use it." There was a pause. "Why are you being like this?" he asked, frustration creeping into his tone. "It's her wedding day. You're punishing her for what?" "For being honest about wanting her real father there." "Real father," I repeated, tasting the bitterness of those words. "You mean the one who walked out when she was 10? The one who didn't pay child support? The one who missed birthdays and Christmases and school plays? That real father?" "I made mistakes," he admitted. "But I'm here now. I'm trying to be part of her life." "You're trying to stand in a spotlight I paid for," I corrected. "You're trying to play hero in a story where you were the villain." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made my blood boil. "She needed me, Tonia. You're not her actual mother. You were just a substitute. Just a substitute." Those words hung in the air like poison. All those years of midnight fevers and homework struggles and scraped knees and broken hearts, reduced to just a substitute. I felt something hard and final click into place inside my chest. "Richard," I said slowly, clearly. "The wedding is cancelled. The money is coming back to me. Your daughter made her choice when she sent me that text message. Now she gets to live with the consequences." "But she needs you," he argued. "She needs her father," I shot back. "Where were you when she actually needed one?" He didn't have an answer for that. After a long silence, he tried a different approach. "Think about what you're doing to her marriage. David's family is humiliated. They flew in from out of state. There are guests who traveled, took time off work, bought gifts. Are you really going to let all that fall apart because your feelings got hurt?" "My feelings got hurt," I repeated softly. "Richard, she told me I wasn't good enough to watch her marry because I'm not her biological mother. She replaced me with you after I spent $42,000 making her dream wedding possible. This isn't about hurt feelings. This is about respect, and she showed me she has none for me." I could hear him breathing hard on the other side of the door, trying to control his anger. "You always were stubborn," he muttered. "And you always were a coward," I replied. "Now get off my porch before I call the police." He left, slamming his car door hard enough that I felt it through the walls. The engine started with an angry roar and he drove away too fast, tires squealing slightly. But let him be mad. Let him try to fix this disaster with his empty hands and emptier promises. The house felt even quieter after he left. I locked the door, checked all the windows, turned off most of the lights. Then I went to my bedroom and lay down on top of the covers, still fully dressed, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. What should have been a celebration was instead this. Me alone in my house, Amber probably crying in some hotel room, a venue sitting empty and dark. Tomorrow people would talk about this. Word would spread about the wedding that never happened. Amber's friends would whisper and speculate. David's family would form opinions. Some people would understand my side. Most probably wouldn't. People love weddings more than they love justice. But I didn't do this for public approval. I did this because I finally realized I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for people who saw me as disposable. Sleep came eventually, thin and restless, filled with dreams I couldn't quite remember when I woke. The next morning arrived gray and cloudy, matching my mood. Sunday morning, and I should have been eating leftover wedding cake and looking at photos from last night's reception. Instead, I made coffee and toast, going through the motions of normal life while everything felt fundamentally changed. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 32 text messages, accumulated through the night from numbers I mostly didn't recognize. I scrolled through them briefly. Some angry, some confused, some begging me to reconsider. I deleted them all without responding. Around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at my door, soft and hesitant. I looked through the peephole and saw Amber standing there, alone this time. She'd clearly not slept, eyes puffy and red, wearing sweatpants and an old college hoodie. She looked small and lost, nothing like a bride. For a moment, I almost opened the door. Almost. Then I remembered her words from that text message. The cold dismissal, the casual cruelty. My hand stopped inches from the lock. "Mama Tonia," she called out quietly, voice hoarse. From crying. "I know you're there. Please. I just want to talk." I stayed silent. "Please," she continued, starting to cry again. "I'm so sorry. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong." I didn't respond. She slid down to sit on the porch, back against my door. I could hear her breathing through the wood. "I don't know what I was thinking," she said, talking to the door like it might carry her words to me better. "Dad, he got in my head. He made it sound like you were trying to control everything. He made it sound like I owed him something because he's my biological father. He said real family, blood family, that's what matters most." And I believed him. I stood completely still, listening. "He was wrong," she whispered. "You're my real family. You're the one who was there. Every day, every night, every time I needed someone. That was always you, never him." I closed my eyes, feeling tears threaten for the first time since this started. But I didn't let them fall. Words are easy. Anyone can say sorry when they need something. I needed to see if she meant it, if she understood what she'd done. "The wedding wasn't even the worst part," she continued. "It's losing you. I ruined everything because I was stupid enough to believe Dad cared more than you did. But he left yesterday. Did you know that? After the venue got locked, after everyone started panicking, he just left. Said he couldn't deal with the drama. Got in his car and drove away. Just like he did when I was 10. My jaw tightened. Of course he did. That's what Richard does when things get difficult. He disappears. You were right about him all along, Amber sobbed. I just didn't want to see it. I wanted so badly to have a dad, a real dad, that I invented a version of him that doesn't exist. And I threw you away to chase that fantasy." She cried quietly for a few minutes, and I let her. "Some lessons you have to learn through pain." Finally she spoke again, softer now. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I can't take back what I said or what I did. But please, please don't shut me out forever. I can't lose you. You're the only mother I've ever really had." Those words broke something loose inside me, but I still didn't open the door. Instead I said through the wood, my voice flat and tired, You didn't lose me yesterday, Amber. You threw me away. There's a difference. She gasped, hearing my voice finally. I know, she whispered. I know I did. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I continued. Sorry doesn't give me back the peace I lost reading your message at 2 in the morning. Sorry doesn't erase you choosing a man who abandoned you over the woman who raised you. I heard her crying harder. Please, what can I do? How can I fix this? Some things don't get fixed, I said. They just get survived. We sat there in silence, her on one side of the door, me on the other, separated by wood and broken trust. After a long time, she spoke again, defeated and small. You hate me. No, I answered honestly. I don't hate you. But I don't trust you anymore either. And without trust, what relationship do we have left? None, she whispered, answering her own question. We have nothing left. I leaned my forehead against the door. So close to her but completely separate. Maybe someday that would change. Maybe years from now, after she'd grown and learned and proved herself different. But not today. Not this week. Not any time soon. You should go home, I said gently. Go talk to David. Figure out what you're going to do next. But don't come back here expecting me to rescue you from consequences you created. I heard her stand up slowly, sniffling. Okay, she said, voice breaking. Bae, I'm going. Her footsteps moved across the porch, down the steps. I looked through the peephole and watched her walk to her car, shoulders hunched, moving like someone much older than 23. She got in, sat there for a moment with her hands on the steering wheel, then drove away. Slowly. After she left, I opened the door and stepped out onto my porch. The morning air was cool and damp. A few neighbors were outside, doing yard work or getting their mail. One of them, Mr. Peterson from 3 houses down, waved at me. Everything okay? He called out. Fine, I called back with a small smile. Just fine. I went back inside and closed the door. My house felt emptier somehow, but also cleaner, like something toxic had been removed. I spent the rest of that Sunday cleaning. Washing floors, dusting shelves, organizing closets. Physical work to process emotional chaos. Each task gave me something to control when everything else felt wild and uncertain. By evening I was exhausted but calmer. I made dinner just for myself, a small chicken breast and vegetables. I ate at my kitchen table, looking at the empty chair across from me where Amber used to sit during high school, telling me about her day. Those memories still existed. The love I'd felt raising her still existed. But the relationship I thought we had, that was revealed to be built on shaky ground, easily destroyed when a better option appeared. Monday came, and with it, a return to normal routines. I went to work, answered phones, filed papers, did all the ordinary things my job required. Co-workers asked about the wedding, how it went, if I had pictures. I'd taken that day off, planning to be at the ceremony. Now I was back early, unexpected. It was nice, I lied simply. They smiled and moved on. To other topics. No one needed to know the truth. That was my private grief to carry. Over the next few days, texts from Amber came sporadically. Short messages. Sorry. Miss you. Please talk to me. Can we try again? I read them all but responded to none. Silence was my answer, clear and complete. By the end of the week, the messages stopped. Either she'd given up or someone had advised her to give me space. Either way, my phone went quiet. Delilah called once to confirm all the refunds had processed and everything was officially closed. Thank you for handling this professionally, I told her. She paused before responding. For what it's worth, I hope you find peace with your decision. Already have, I said. And I meant it. Life continued forward because that's what life does. Days turned into weeks. The story of the cancelled wedding probably spread through Amber circles, morphing and changing with each retelling. I didn't ask. I didn't look at social media. I simply moved forward one day at a time, rebuilding my savings, rediscovering hobbies I'd neglected, remembering who I was before I became defined by my role as Amber's mother. One Saturday afternoon about a month later, I was at the grocery store pushing my cart down the cereal aisle when I saw them. Amber and David, shopping together, looking at pasta boxes. They hadn't seen me yet. I could have turned around, avoided the encounter. But something made me keep walking. Amber looked up and froze. Eyes met across the distance. David noticed her reaction and followed her gaze. For a moment nobody moved. Then Amber took a small step forward, hesitant. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," I replied, voice neutral. "How are you?" I asked because basic politeness existed even in broken relationships. "We're okay," David answered when Amber couldn't seem to find words. "We got married actually. Last week. Small ceremony at the courthouse. Just us and our parents." My eyebrows rose slightly. "Congratulations." "Thank you," he said. "We decided simple was better." "Sometimes that's true," I agreed. Amber's eyes were filling with tears, but she blinked them back. "I wanted to invite you," she whispered. "But I didn't think you'd come." "You were right," I said gently. "I wouldn't have." She nodded, accepting that truth. An awkward silence stretched between us. Then David put his hand on Amber's shoulder. "We should finish shopping," he said carefully. "Yeah," she agreed. Goodbye, Tonia." "Goodbye, Amber," I replied. They walked away down the aisle, and I continued in the opposite direction. My chest felt tight but not painful. Just aware. That encounter stayed with me for days. She'd gotten married without me, just like she'd planned, only smaller, quieter, less expensive. Without my $42,000, they'd made do with what they had. Life had continued for them, just differently than expected. And somehow that felt right. She'd made her choices. Now she was living with them. I was living with mine too. No more phone calls asking for help. No more expectations that I'd always be there to catch her when she fell. The cord between us had been cut, cleanly and completely. 2 months after the cancelled wedding, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized Amber's handwriting on the envelope. I held it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single piece of paper, covered in her neat, round handwriting. "Dear Mama Tonia," it began. "I've written this letter probably 20 times and thrown it away 19. But I need to say these things even if you never write back. You were right about everything. About Dad, about me, about what I did. I was so desperate to have the father I'd always imagined that I ignored the mother I actually had. That was the biggest mistake of my life. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I understand now. I understand what you sacrificed. Understand what I destroyed. I understand that love isn't about biology. It's about showing up every single day. You showed up. He never did. David and I are okay. We're figuring out married life in a tiny apartment. Nothing fancy, working hard, making our own way. His parents have been kind, but it's not the same. You knew me in a way no one else ever will. You knew how I liked my sandwiches cut and which songs made me cry and what to say when I was scared. That knowledge came from years of caring, and I threw it away like it meant nothing. Sorry. I know those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I hope someday, maybe years from now, you might let me try to earn back even a small piece of your trust. Not as your daughter, I know I lost that right, but maybe as someone who finally understands what real love looks like. Thank you for everything you gave me. I didn't appreciate it then, but I do now. Amber. I read the letter 3 times, folded it carefully, and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe not. That wasn't a decision I needed to make today. The important thing was that she understood. She knew what she'd done and why it mattered. That knowledge would shape her future, hopefully making her kinder, wiser, more grateful. Time continued its steady march forward. Seasons changed. My bank account slowly recovered. Life settled into new routines that didn't include anyone depending on me for everything. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try. I joined a book club at the library. I went on a weekend trip with some coworkers to a cabin in the mountains. Slowly, I remembered what it felt like to live for myself instead of sacrificing for someone else. 6 months after everything fell apart, I was eating lunch at a small cafe downtown when someone sat down across from me. I looked up, surprised, and saw Patricia Young, David's mother. "May I join you?" she asked. "I'd already sat down, so I guess you are," I replied with slight humor. She smiled tightly. "I owe you an apology. I didn't expect that." "For what?" "For showing up at your house angry instead of asking questions first. For assuming you'd done something wrong when really, you just finally stood up for yourself." I set down my sandwich, giving her my full attention. "Amber told us everything eventually," she continued. "About the text message, about replacing you, about your ex-husband. My son was furious with her when he found out the whole truth. They almost didn't get married at all. But they worked it out." "Yes. They're trying," Patricia said. "But it's hard. There's a crack in the foundation now, you know? Trust issues. She knows David wonders what else she might be lying about or hiding. That made me sad, not for Amber but for David. He seemed like a genuinely good person who didn't deserve to start his marriage with doubt." "That's not your fault," Patricia said, reading my expression. "She made her choices. You just responded to them." "Thank you for saying that," I replied. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand briefly. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly strong. And if my son's marriage doesn't work out, I wouldn't blame you. The consequences, those are all on her." We finished our lunches and parted ways, and I felt something ease in my chest. Validation from an unexpected source, understanding from someone who had no obligation to see my side. As I walked home that afternoon, past houses and trees and ordinary life happening all around me, I realized I felt okay. Not happy exactly, but content, peaceful. The grief was still there, probably always would be in some form. You don't raise a child for 15 years and then easily forget her. But alongside that grief was something new, self-respect. For the first time in my life, I'd put myself first when it mattered most. I'd said enough is enough and meant it. That strength would carry me forward into whatever came next. 1 year after the cancelled wedding, I received another letter from Amber. This one was shorter. "Mama Tonia, I'm not asking to see you or to be forgiven. I just wanted you to know I started therapy. I'm working through a lot of things, understanding patterns and choices and why I hurt people who love me. My therapist says healing takes time and I shouldn't rush it. So I'm not rushing. But I wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. If you ever want to talk, my number is the same. No pressure, no expectations. Just if you want, I'm here. With love and regret, Amber." I put that letter in the drawer with the first one. Then I went to my desk and pulled out a piece of paper. I wrote slowly, carefully. "Amber, I received your letter. I'm glad you're in therapy. That shows maturity and self-awareness. I'm not ready to rebuild a relationship with you yet. The hurt is still too fresh, the trust too broken. But I appreciate you taking responsibility for your actions. That's growth. Maybe someday we'll talk again. When that day comes, if it comes, we'll see where we stand. Until then, take care of yourself and your husband. Learn from your mistakes. Become someone who values the people who show up, not just the ones who are related by blood. Tonia." I mailed the letter the next day. It felt like closing one chapter and cautiously opening a crack in the door to another. Not a reconciliation, not yet, maybe not ever. But acknowledgement that we were both still here, still trying to figure out how to live with what had happened. And maybe that was enough for now. As I sit here today, telling you this story, 2 years have passed since that cancelled wedding. Amber and David are still married. From what I hear through occasional updates from Patricia, they have a small apartment, normal jobs, normal struggles. She works at a dental office. He's still at the bank. They're building a life piece by piece, the way most people do. Richard, I heard, moved to another state. No goodbye, no apology, just gone again. 3rd time leaving his daughter behind. Some people never change. Me. I'm doing well. Better than well, actually. I'm dating someone, a kind man named Harold who works at the library. He knows my story and doesn't judge me for it. He says I did what I had to do, and he respects that kind of strength. We're taking things slow, enjoying each other's company without rush or pressure. I've saved up enough money to take a real vacation next month. Somewhere tropical with beaches and sunshine. Something. Just for me, paid for by money I earned and kept instead of giving away. My house feels like mine again, not a museum of someone else's childhood. I've redecorated, changed the colors, added new furniture. It's fresh and different and wholly my own space. Do I miss Amber? Sometimes yes. I miss the little girl who called me mama without hesitation. I miss the teenager who needed my advice about everything. But I don't miss the woman who thought I was disposable. And I've learned that missing someone doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. Love and boundaries can exist together. Do I regret canceling the wedding? No. Not even a little bit. It was the clearest statement I could make. You cannot treat me poorly and still expect my support. That message was worth $42,000 and a ruined celebration. Because in the end, I didn't ruin her life. She's married, working, presumably happy enough. I just stopped enabling her cruelty. There's a difference. You're watching this and you've ever felt taken for granted. Let me tell you something important. Your worth is not determined by how much you sacrifice for people who don't appreciate you. Your value doesn't come from making yourself smaller so others can feel bigger. You are allowed to say enough. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace, even when people call you selfish for doing it. I spent 15 years putting someone else first, loving unconditionally, sacrificing constantly. And when push came to shove, that person told me I wasn't good enough because I didn't share her DNA. So I stopped. I stopped bending. I stopped sacrificing. I stopped being available for someone who had proven I was expendable. And you know what? The sky didn't fall. My life didn't end. If anything, it began again, this time centered around someone who actually deserves my energy, me. Some people will call my actions harsh. They'll say weddings are sacred, that family should forgive. Anything that I should have been the bigger person. To them I say, being the bigger person doesn't mean being a doormat. Forgiveness doesn't require you to keep subjecting yourself to mistreatment. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let people experience the natural consequences of their choices. Amber chose to value biology over loyalty. She chose her absent father over her present mother. She chose to uninvite me from a wedding I funded. Those were her choices. Canceling. Everything was mine. We both have to live with what we decided. The difference is, I'm at peace with my decision. I wake up every morning knowing I finally valued myself enough to demand respect. That knowledge makes the lonely moments worth it. It makes the occasional sadness worth it. It makes everything worth it. To anyone watching who has ever raised a child that wasn't biologically theirs, I see you. I know how hard you work, how much you love, how deeply it hurts when that love gets dismissed as less than because of biology. Your love matters. Your sacrifices count. And you deserve to be treated with the same respect you'd give a biological parent, maybe even more because you chose this. You didn't have to love that child, but you did anyway. That's powerful. Don't let anyone diminish it. To anyone watching who has taken advantage of someone's unconditional love, thinking it would always be there no matter how poorly you treated them, let me warn you. Everyone has a limit. Everyone has a breaking point. Push someone far enough, hurt them deep enough, and eventually they will walk away. And when they do, crying and apologizing might not be enough to bring them back. Treat people well while you have them. Value their presence before it becomes absence. As for Amber and me, our story isn't finished. It might never be truly finished. There's still pain there, still complicated feelings, still love buried under layers of hurt. Maybe someday we'll sit down together and talk about everything that happened. Maybe we'll find a way to be in each other's lives again, differently than before, with new boundaries and honest communication. Or maybe we won't. Maybe this is how our story ends, with me moving forward into my own life and her building hers separately. Either way, I'll be okay. Because I've learned the most important lesson of all. You can love someone completely, sacrifice everything for them, give them your whole heart, and they can still choose to walk away or push you aside. That's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their character. And when that happens, you have a choice. You can keep begging for scraps of appreciation from someone who doesn't value you. Or you can stand up, dust yourself off, and redirect that love toward yourself and people who actually deserve it. Chose the latter. And I would choose it again every single time. So here I am 2 years later, telling this story to whoever needs to hear it. I spent $42,000 on a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. So I canceled the whole thing and walked away from the stepdaughter I raised for 15 years. People call me petty. People call me cruel. Call it self-respect. And I sleep just fine at night. If you made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. Thank you for not judging too quickly. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is refuse to be someone's backup option. Rob. Comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. Would you have cancelled the wedding? Would you have shown up anyway, swallowing your hurt? Would you have handled it differently? I'm genuinely curious what others think. And if you're going through something similar, if someone in your life is taking advantage of your love, remember this. You deserve better. You are worth more. And it's okay to walk away from people who make you feel like you're not. Thank you for watching. This is Granny's voice, reminding you that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is love yourself enough to let go. The months that followed my decision taught me things about myself I'd never known. I learned I was stronger than I thought, capable of standing alone when necessary. I learned that endings, even painful ones, can lead to new beginnings. I learned that the people who truly care about you will understand your boundaries, and the ones who don't probably never valued you correctly in the first place. Started volunteering at a community center, helping kids with their homework. At first, I wondered if it would hurt, working with children again after losing the one I'd raised. But it didn't hurt. Healed something. These kids appreciated help. They said thank you. They lit up when they understood a difficult concept. They reminded me why I'd loved being a parent in the first place, the genuine connection, the growth, the joy of helping someone become their best self. One little girl named Maria, about 9 years old, started calling me Miss Tonia and waiting for me specifically every Tuesday and Thursday. She'd bring me drawings she made, tell me about her day, ask my advice about friend drama at school. Her mother came to me once and said, "You've made such a difference for her. She talks about you all the time." That simple statement filled something that had been empty for a long time. The knowledge that I could still matter to someone, still make a positive impact, still be valued for what I offered. I didn't need to be taken for granted anymore. There were better ways to share my love. Harold, my boyfriend, he's been a steady presence through all of this. He doesn't try to fix me or rush my healing. He just exists beside me, patient and kind. We cook dinner together on weekends. We take long walks through parks. We talk about books and movies and silly things that don't matter much. It's easy and comfortable, no drama, no games, just two people enjoying each other. One evening, while we were watching the sunset from his back porch, he asked me something that made me pause. "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive her?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. "I don't know," I finally said. "Maybe forgiveness isn't the goal. Maybe peace is." He nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. That's the thing about good people. They don't require you to perform healing on their timeline. 3 months ago, something unexpected happened. I was at the grocery store again. Seems like that's where life-changing moments happen for me, when I saw a familiar face. Richard, my ex-husband, looking older and more tired than before. He saw me at the same moment I saw him. For a second, I thought he might pretend not to notice and walk the other way. Instead, he came toward me, stopping a respectful distance away. "Tonia," he said quietly. "Richard," I replied, voice neutral. "Can we talk?" He asked. "Just for a minute." "I'm right in the middle of shopping," I said, gesturing to my cart. "But I suppose a minute won't hurt." He glanced around like he was checking if anyone was listening, then spoke in a low voice. "I owe you an apology." "For what specifically?" I asked, because there were so many things he could apologize for. "Everything," he said. "For cheating. For leaving you to raise Amber alone. For turning her against you. For trying to take credit for a wedding you paid for. For being a coward my whole life." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, or lies. All I saw was exhaustion and regret. What brought this on? Yes. He sighed deeply. I've been doing some thinking, some therapy actually. Trying to figure out why I keep destroying everything good in my life. And I realized I owe apologies to a lot of people, but especially to you. You were a good wife. You were an amazing mother to my daughter. And I repaid you by breaking our family and then poisoning Amber against you. That's unforgivable. You're right, I agreed. Is unforgivable. He nodded, accepting that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see clearly now what I did, and I'm sorry. I appreciate you saying that, I told him honestly. Doesn't change anything, but I do appreciate it. I know, he said. Take care of yourself, Tonya. You deserve good things. You too, Richard, I replied, surprising myself. We went our separate ways in that grocery store, and I felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the first tiny step toward letting go of old anger. He'd acknowledged his wrongs. That was more than I'd expected. Last month, I received a phone call from David, Amber's husband. It was late afternoon, and his voice sounded nervous. Miss Tonya, I hope this isn't weird me calling you. Not weird, I said. What's going on? He took a deep breath. Amber doesn't know I'm calling. But I wanted to tell you something. She talks about you all the time. She has your picture on her desk at work. She cries sometimes, missing. And I thought you should know she's genuinely remorseful. Not because the wedding got cancelled, but because she hurt you. My chest tightened. Why are you telling me this, David? Because you deserve to know the truth, he said. And because if my wife ever gets the chance to make this right, she needs to understand how deeply she damaged things. The work to rebuild would be enormous. I don't expect you to do anything with this information, he continued. I just wanted you to know she's not the same person who sent that text. She's grown up a lot. Thank you for telling me, I said. But growth doesn't automatically mean reconciliation. I know, he replied. I just thought you should know. After we hung up, I sat with that information for a long time. Amber was hurting. Part of me felt satisfied by that, which probably makes me sound cruel. But another part, a smaller, quieter part, felt sad. Not sad enough to reach out, but sad nonetheless. Yesterday, I did something I'd been considering for months. I wrote Amber a longer letter, not forgiving her, but explaining more clearly why I'd made the choices I made. I wanted her to understand not just that she'd hurt me, but how and why. Dear Amber, I began. 2 years ago you sent me a text message that changed everything. You probably remember it. I know I'll never forget it. What you need to understand is that text wasn't the problem. It was the final evidence of a problem that had been growing for years. Every time you chose your father's version of events over mine. Every time you dismissed my sacrifices as less important because I wasn't your biological mother. Every time you treated my love as guaranteed while his was precious. You were building toward that moment. The text just made it impossible for me to pretend anymore. I canceled the wedding not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I could not, in good conscience, fund a celebration that I was deemed unworthy to attend. I could not continue pouring everything into someone who saw me as disposable. You called me your stepmother like it was a demotion. You replaced me with a man who'd abandoned you repeatedly. And you expected me to smile and accept it. I couldn't. I wouldn't. These 2 years apart have taught me that I deserve respect, even from people I love. Especially from people I love. They've taught me that sacrificing myself doesn't make me noble. Makes me depleted. They've taught me that walking away from mistreatment isn't cruel. It's necessary. I don't hate you. I probably never could. But I also don't trust you anymore, and trust is essential for any relationship. Can it be rebuilt? Maybe. Time will tell. But it would require more than apologies. It would require consistent changed behavior over months or years. It would require you proving, not just saying, that you understand what you did and why it was wrong. I'm not closing the door forever. But I'm also not opening it yet. If someday in the future we find our way back to each other, it will be as different people with a different relationship. Not parent and child, but two adults who hurt each other and had to learn hard lessons. Until then, take care of yourself. Be good to your husband. Learn from your mistakes. And remember that blood doesn't make family, loyalty does. Tonya. I mailed it this morning. Now I'm sitting here, telling you all this story, feeling lighter than I have in years. Because I've said everything I needed to say. I've done everything I needed to do. The rest is up to time and whatever healing might or might not come. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Your worth is not negotiable. Not for family, not for love, not for anyone. When someone shows you they don't value you, believe them. And more importantly, value yourself enough to walk away. Might hurt. Might be lonely. People might not understand. But you will know, deep in your bones, that you honored yourself. And that knowledge will carry you through every difficult moment. I spent $42,000 on a wedding that never happened. Some people think that makes me the villain of this story. I think it makes me the woman who finally learned to put herself first. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Thank you for listening to Granny's voice. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Make sure you're teaching them that you matter. Drop a like if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real talk about life's complicated situations. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to prioritize themselves. Until next time, protect your peace, value your worth, and never apologize for demanding respect. This is Granny's voice signing off.